Meet Beena. For the last several months, she has been shuttling between fertility clinics across Bangalore, hoping to conceive a child. Each clinic told her the same story: how women just like her, 36 years old, had successfully conceived thanks to the magic of IVF or in vitro fertilization. So, after months of trying and failing to conceive naturally, Beena finally gave in. She coughed up 3.5 lakh rupees and went through just one round of the IVF cycle, only to learn what her test results had predicted all along: that her chances of conceiving were slim. To be precise, around 30%. To put that in perspective, the average woman in her 20s has a near 50% chance of conceiving a child. So, Beena ended up learning, like many before her, that IVF is a game of probabilities. It's hugely dependent on a bunch of different factors like age, uterine health, and sperm quality. Only one in every 12 retrieved eggs may result in an implantation ready embryo. But IVF chains are hardly thrown off by that math. They've managed to turn IVF treatment into the new C section. They are convincing more and more women to opt for the expensive procedure before even trying to conceive naturally. And the result is a $1.4 billion IVF market in India. To put that in context, that's 10 times the market for cataract surgery, which is the most common procedure worldwide. And with 250,000 IVF cycles each year, it's growing at an annual compound rate of 16%. Now, we all know that when there's growth, especially growth this rapid, there's venture capital and private equity. These firms have been swooping in for the kill. But of course, this growth comes at a cost, a massive one at that: quality care. These clinics are adopting a sales first approach. But in the process, they're feeding women a diet of false hopes and bloated odds and setting back infertility treatment in the country by years. In this episode, we uncover the forces driving the IVF boom here in India. Welcome to Daybreak, a business podcast from the Ken. I'm your host Rahil Philippos, and I don't chase the news cycle. Instead, every day of the week, my colleague Snigdha Sharma and I will come to you with one business story that is worth understanding and worth your time. Today is Wednesday, the 30th of July. There's an interesting paradox that emerges when you look closely at the whole conception business here in India. Any expert you speak to will tell you that Indians are willing to pay anything at all for a biological child. But at the same time, a recent study by the UN Population Fund found that 4 in every 10 reproductive age adults have cited financial limitations as a barrier to actually having children. It's that desperation that forms the foundation of India's IVF boom. Take something as basic as the definition of infertility. According to the World Health Organization, a couple is infertile if they can't conceive naturally after a year of actively trying in the right fertility windows. IVF clinics in India, however, think they know better. My colleague Sudeshna Ray visited 10 IVF clinics in Bangalore, and she noticed the same trend being followed at every single one. They would all coax women to give IVF a go, even if they had the option of conceiving naturally. They would say things like, "There's no harm trying it," or "At your age, it's safer to go for it if you can afford it." If the odds of conception through IVF are slim, counselors and doctors simply don't mention it. And if they do, they encourage women to hope for a miracle. Essentially, clinics don't discriminate. No matter your age, your fertility numbers like AMH and AFC, or conditions like endometriosis, their message is clear: IVF is for everyone. Come one, come all. 38-year-old Sujata was a victim of this. Her chances of conceiving were already at a low 20%. Over and above that, her AMH levels were merely 0.96 nanograms per milliliter, which is very low. For context, the optimal requirement for IVF is about 1 to 3.5 nanograms per milliliter. But despite this, her doctor convinced her to give it a shot. She braved 3 IVF cycles, spending nearly 3 lakh rupees total, and none of them worked. Bottom line is, in the middle of all of this, these clinics are skipping the fundamental steps of the treatment process. For instance, several male partners suffer from conditions like varicocele and large scrotal veins. They naturally affect fertility. But instead of prioritizing their treatment, the blame is often shifted onto the woman's shoulders. In fact, this is a structural issue. You see, most IVF centers are led by OBGYNs, but their counterpart, andrologists, are brought in as consultants on a need basis. So, unless a couple explicitly seeks out treatment for the male partner, it's often overlooked. And then there's the murkier underbelly of the whole process, where clients are rarely provided DNA proof of parentage either before or after the implantation of the embryo. The twisted logic that these clinics often deploy, like a weapon, is have faith in your doctors. But women like Beena and Sujata are increasingly asking how they can blindly trust when they have no reason to. Stay tuned. Now, ideally, an embryologist should be at the heart of the IVF procedure. But they're a rare breed. For context, currently there are only about 1,500 of them in the country, which is why most clinics invariably end up having OBGYNs winging through these steps. It's only large IVF chains that actually have full-time embryologists. Smaller chains and standalone centers are forced to share embryologists who work across multiple clinics on a freelance or consultant basis. And then, to make matters worse, experts we spoke to said only 10% of existing embryologists are actually trained correctly. The same experts said many of them have no idea how to handle crucial steps like selecting sperm. So, positive results end up seeing a massive drop. All this means that patients who walk into IVF clinics in India rarely see or hear from an embryologist throughout their time there. And when they do, it's often just at the end, when they're dragged in to justify why the procedure failed. But it's not like IVF chains aren't trying to deal with the shortage. Some have even started their own training programs for embryologists and OBGYNs who want to specialize in infertility. These courses typically last 3 to 6 months, but even that's not enough. A more sustainable solution has been universities increasing their embryology batch sizes to add around 500 such professionals to the mix every single year. But guess who's not happy about the new rush of embryologists? Well, of course, it's the OGs, the 1,500 that were already in high demand. They are now falling over each other to extract the most money from the current market's unmet demand. That is, before they can't anymore. Stay tuned. No one is more bothered by the IVF boom than insurers, because now they feel like there's no way of ascertaining whether an IVF procedure is genuinely required in the first place. The fear of a supply-induced demand is real, especially in an industry that pushes invasive treatment when natural alternatives may suffice for some. That's exactly what happened with C-sections in India too. In that case, insurers had to put an ailment cap on the procedures, becoming increasingly ubiquitous to limit payouts. We spoke to an expert who explained the predicament for insurers and for patients. They explained that logically, insurers should be open to covering necessary infertility treatments. But it's difficult to verify whether a couple could not conceive naturally. So the easiest way is to say, hey, we're not going to cover it at all. But while insurers are running away from it, investors cannot get enough of IVF. That's because the margins are huge. We're talking 50 to 60%. That takes care of the setting up costs. The OPD model induces further cost savings and allows doctors to sidestep the working at odd hours obligation of multi-specialty hospitals. And then low operational costs and high revenue per IVF cycle combine to form a heady cocktail. We're talking high EBITDA. Growing infertility and more couples having children late into their 30s and 40s are only making this industry a more lucrative bet. But the couples actually opting for the procedure often realize too late that it is a gamble of sorts. If you win, the cost is worth it. But it's far more likely that you will lose, and it'll all have been for nothing.
Daybreak is produced from the newsroom of The Ken, India's first subscriber-focused business news platform. What you're listening to is just a small sample of our subscriber-only offerings. A full subscription unlocks daily long-form feature stories, newsletters, and podcast extras. Head to theken.com and click on the red subscribe button on the top of the website. Today's episode was hosted by Rahil Philippos and edited by Rajiv CN.